Hello, thank you for having me. My name's Sheridan and this is my dissertation on investigating and developing the attitudes and perceptions of neurodiversity within the workforce in South Yorkshire Police and how it could be improved. So why I chose this topic. Working within a response team for the last few years has been amazing for growth and learning, but there have been a couple of stumbling blocks along the way due to neurodiversity. There has also been a realisation to misconceptions of neurodiversity and the lack of knowledge and support in some areas, which has given me the passion and drive to want to investigate this further. Understanding the attitudes and perceptions of neurodiversity among police officers within SYP is crucial for promoting inclusivity, improving interactions with neurodiverse individuals, and fostering a supportive work environment. So nearly 750,000 people in the UK live with autism and an estimated 3 million are thought to live with ADHD, yet only 10% of these have a confirmed diagnosis. Policing is known for its fast pace and dark humour, which is connected to the organisational culture. So would it be more convenient for SYP to have all neurotypical members of staff? And does the organisational culture within policing contribute into officers not disclosing their neurodiversity to SYP? Because of neurodiversity, not everyone has the same equal start when completing their job role, but it does not mean that there are not valid members of staff, and there are certain parts of the job role that a staff member with a neurodiversity could do better than a neurotypical member of staff. So examples of this could be out of the box thinking, attention to detail, and pattern recognition, along with many others. My main objective that I wanted to get from my dissertation was to discover how SYP support their neurodivergent staff members and to investigate what help is on hand to allow these staff members to feel valued, to investigate the perception of neurodiversity within SYP and how neurodivergent staff members are perceived by their colleagues and supervision, and to investigate any direct improvements that can be made when analysing what staff members have struggled with, as well as their negative experiences whilst performing their role within SYP. So I gathered fresh new evidence by questionnaire from staff members within SYP that either had a neurodiversity or suspected that they did. This was done anonymously via Qualtrics, meaning that staff members who had not wanted to disclose their neurodiversity to SYP could still complete the questionnaire and it could be investigated why this was. The questions were based around how having a neurodiversity affected staff whilst performing their job role, and the results is how I created my recommendations. I used an evidence-based policing problem-solving method throughout to highlight SYP's strengths, weaknesses, and what could be done better using the public health model by Winslow, which was split into defining the problem, finding the cause, finding solutions that work, and taking action. I did feel that this was a clear and concise model to follow. I used thematic analysis, which is the science of gathering qualitative data, then looking for themes or patterns. So the graph on the screen show the neurodiversities that the respondents have or suspect that they have. Each question led on to many topics to discuss and investigate. So the things that came from this were autistic burnout, masking, disclosure, reasonable adjustments, supervision, is being neurodivergent a disability, sensory issues, maximising neurodiversity and special interests. Due to timing today, I'm just going to go through a few of those. So, disclosure. Respondents were asked in the questionnaire if they have disclosed their neurodiversity conditions to SYP. 74% of those had, but 84.6% of these people also said that disclosing was not beneficial to them. Throughout the questionnaire, it was mentioned several times by the respondents that they feel that requesting if someone has a neurodiversity is just for a tick box exercise. Respondent number 6 said, nothing really changed other than a marker being put on my personal record. It's easy to ask the question around neurodiversity on an application process and provide extra time to people who confirm they are neurodivergent to complete the tests and assessments needed. However, to stay on top of this throughout the role of a police officer or police staff, it's not as simple. This is because of things like different types of neurodiversities having different needs, the constant unknown within the job role, not all supervisors having a good knowledge on neurodiversity to offer the support, often coming across unplanned circumstances to deal with, colleagues having different views on neurodiversity. It does seem from the findings that more could be done to make officers and staff with neurodiversity feel more supported. It was evidenced that the wait time for ADHD and ASD assessments can be between 2 and 5 years, but people need an assessment to get reasonable adjustments, which is a barrier. So reasonable adjustments and what is reasonable? College of Policing have stated that reasonable adjustments are changes that employers must make to ensure that disabled people and people with physical and mental health conditions are not disadvantaged. It was evidenced in this investigation that it's common for it to be easy to provide reasonable adjustments for dyslexia due to it being more specific than other neurodiversities such as ASD and ADHD. A few responses around the disclosure were: respondent number 5 said, I sent my sergeant the plan from HR to fill out with me, and this has still not been done, despite attempting multiple meetings. Respondent number 10 said, I informed supervisors and was referred to OHU, who stated I need to go to my GP for a diagnosis. No further help offered. So moving on to supervision. Many of the findings from the respondents evidence that it was dependent on their supervision and how they supported and managed their team, whether they felt supported within their role in SYP. I'm going to read out some of the responses regarding their supervision. So respondent number 3 said, I have asked for my study days for the dissertation to be consecutive to help me concentrate. This was ignored. Respondent number 6 said, in the police force, nothing really changed other than a marker being put on my personal record. And respondent number 9 said, over the last 8 years, I have found it difficult to approach my supervision to raise this as a subject. These responses have evidenced that education and training around neurodiversity would be beneficial, as respondents have not had positive experiences when it comes to colleagues and supervisors from SYP, especially in ensuring that they are supported and able to develop. There were also misconceptions from SYP. So respondent number 6 said, we had a missing person who had autism and she was running in and out of traffic on the motorway. And members of my team were stating that it was because she was autistic that she was doing that. This made me sad that this is what my own team thought autism was. So is being neurodivergent a disability? Not everyone who has a neurodiversity would class themselves as being disabled or vulnerable, or say that their neurodiversity is disabling. 83% of the respondents said that they found their neurodiversity to be disabling or challenging, but only 54% would class themselves as having a disability. This could be due to the stigma attached, or that the word disabled having a negative impact, meaning that when a disability is hidden, it does not need to be disclosed. So, taking action, these are my recommendations. So recommendation 1 is training for all staff and supervisors on neurodiversity. So throughout the review, it came up many times about how the respondents have been made to feel due to a misconception of neurodiversity or the hard as nails way of working of police culture. But with neurodiversity on the rise, and not only with members of staff, but also victims and suspects that the SYP staff members will deal with daily that could also have a neurodiversity, it's important to get it right first time. Recommendation 2 is supervisor check-ins. Many of the findings from the respondents evidence that it was dependent on their supervision and how they supported and managed their team, whether they felt supported within their role in SYP. Most responses that were received had received a negative experiences or felt uncomfortable from their supervisory due to their neurodiversity on at least one occasion. A monthly or quarterly check-in could help reduce this and could also help build a better connection so that when something is needed, the supervisor is approachable for the respondents who have stated they do not feel as though they can do this. Recommendation 3, spell checker on Pronto. This recommendation was mentioned by several respondents. It was stated that it takes officers much longer to complete paperwork and statements as Pronto does not have a spell checker within it, resulting in officers sometimes doing double the amount of paperwork to make sure that their spelling and grammar is correct. And finally, recommendation 4, further help with case files and paperwork. The final recommendation has also been brought up on numerous occasions by the respondents, stating that they struggle to learn in a classroom environment in large groups of people, as well as the Connect systems to create case files to be extremely daunting and hard to use. Having different training for neurodiverse staff members would be a step in the right direction. Teaching in smaller groups would be beneficial. In large groups, staff members with neurodiversity are likely to want to ask questions due to a fear of, are likely not to want to ask questions due to a fear of looking silly, and as mentioned several times throughout this report, could revert to masking just to get through and resulting in not learning much from a training session and not improving in their role because of this. So I'll just move on to the recommendations and how they will inform practice. So it increases understanding and acceptance of different working styles. It encourages clearer communications for everyone. It promotes a more inclusive work environment and also leads to more diverse perspectives in problem solving. So, thank you.